Guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we will be talking about open season. Now, open season starts off with our ranger Beth packing up to go to her job at the ranger station because she does a show with her pet bear Boog. Now, at the beginning of the movie, Boog tries to scare her, but she roared at him right back and says, "That's the roar, Boog. Now come on, we're gonna be late." And they live in a small town called Timberland. And so every day, Beth goes to stadium to stadium, showing everyone the mighty Grizzly. Now, Beth found Boog alone in the woods when he was just a cub, and she's been raising him ever since. But one day, when she's leaving after the show, and she is telling Boog how they did such a good job, Boog meets on top of Shaw the hunter's car. Shaw is a hunter, and he hunts reindeers and other wild animals that live in the woods. And then one day, while waiting in the car, Boog meets Elliot, who is missing an antler. And then when Elliot wakes up from his sleep, he says, Where am I? What's going on?" And then Boog explains to Elliot how he is in Timberland and how he was captured by Shaw. And then we find out that Beth went in to tell Gordy the sheriff that he is at it again, Sheriff. He is out hunting when it's not even hunting season for 3 more days. And then Shaw says, "Stay out of this, Girl Scout," because she looks like a Girl Scout because she's a ranger, I guess. She looks like a Girl Scout because she's just like a ranger, which she is a ranger. And then Shaw talks about Boog, the bear that she has, and then he said that Boog will go good with ketchup and a side of fries. And then Bethany says, "You're a sick man, Shaw." And then she walks out and tells Boog, "Come on, Boog, we're going home." And Elliot has been begging Boog to untie him. And so Boog finally ties him from Shaw's truck. And then Boog says, "Run, you are free now. Run back to the woods, little buddy." And at first, when they are talking, Elliot thinks that he has been captured as well when he sees him in Beth's car. So keep that in mind, because we will circle back to that. Anyway, they go home, they have the little routine, and Boog has got food, water, even his own bathroom. He has his own little private bathroom. So he is living the life here. He is living the life in the garage. It's just so cute. And he is watching Wheel of Fortune until Beth turns the TV off and says, "Okay, Boog, bedtime." And then Boog turns the TV back on, and then Beth says, "Boog, Mr. Dinkelman is waiting." So Mr. Dinkelman is his teddy bear, and Beth tucks him into bed and gives him his fishy crackers. And then she sings the special song that Mr. Dinkelman is a wind up toy. So Mr. Dinkelman has like the song in him. It goes like, "If you go out into the woods tonight, something and a picnic and a bear." Um all the bears are having a picnic, and keep the song in mind because that will also come back. So when he is sleeping that night, he hears something against the garage door. He looks, and it's rabbits being thrown at his window. And then when he realizes that it's Elliot, he says, "You can go back into the woods. You are free now. Please leave me be." And then Elliot says, "No, I'm here to set you free. I'm returning the favor. You set me free, I'm gonna set you free." And then Boog tells him that he is in no danger here. He lives here. This is his town and this is his house. Uh, and then when Elliot comes to realize that he has a bathroom, a little snack bowl, a TV, Elliot says, "Oh, well, you're a pet." And then Boog says, "I am nobody's pet. I go when I want, and I leave when I want, and I come back whenever I please." And then Elliot says, "All right then, come outside with me, and then we can go get some candy." And then he says, "Outside? Why would I want to go outside when I have everything I want right here?" So he shows him the candy. So Elliot shows him the candy bar that he has. And so he is off to get some more candy bars after he ate Elliot's half of his candy bar. So they break into a convenience store, and then Boog says, "Elliot, look what you did. You're gonna get us into big trouble." But then he takes a sniff of all the candy and all the sodas. He takes a sniff of the good smells with his nose, and then he is all in. So they are having fun, eating junk food all over the place. Well, remember when I told you that they broke in? Well, yeah, they broke in. They sounded the alarm, and then the cop, Gordy, took him back home to Beth, and then Beth said, "You were in big trouble, mister." And then and and then and then Gordy, while Boog gets in the house, and he tells Mr. Dinkelman, "I told you not to wait up for me." And okay, look. The candy makes Boog hyper, so he tries not to eat a lot of candy because it makes him hyper. So anyway, since he was hyper on the candy, Gordy took him home. And so that's why he's acting all funny, because he's hyper on the candy. So anyway, when Boog is inside, he waves through the garage window to say goodbye, to say hi to Beth and that he is sorry. And then Beth tells him to go to bed, Boog. And then Boog actually thrilled up a little bit, but he's okay. And then Gordy tells Beth, Beth, you're not his mother. I know you found him in the woods when he was a cub, but don't you think it'll be better if he was out in the woods? And then Beth asks for one more summer, and then Gordy says, you know, the more you keep him in here with you, the more it's going to be hard for him to adapt. And then Beth says, it's not like I don't try. I took him fishing, but he just didn't want to get wet. And then all I'm asking is for one more summer, Gordy. One more summer. And then Gordy says, okay, one more summer. Good night, Beth. And then Beth goes into the garage to see Boog, and she says, what am I going to do with you? So the next day, he is preparing for the show, but the hunter has found Elliot once again. So Elliot finds Boog's show, and he hides behind the costumes, and Elliot actually puts one of the costumes on, and while the costume is on, Boog is trying to take the costumes off of Elliot, but the way it looks is that Boog is trying to attack Elliot, right? And they are messing up the show because while Beth was getting ready to introduce Elliot, Boog, Elliot came out instead, and when they saw his one antler, they thought the little guy was so cute, and they thought the little guy was a donkey for some reason. And then when he went to go back to find Boog, Boog was taking the costume off of Elliot, but everybody thought that Boog was hurting the donkey. So Beth had to put Boog down, and she actually drove him into the woods while he was sleeping, and and um and um Beth got all his stuff for him. He's got his stuffed animal, he's got his blanket, he's got everything he needs, and he even's got his fishy crackers. And she says, you are gonna be just fine. I'm gonna miss you, Big Eye. Then she kisses him on the forehead, and then she leaves to go back home to Timberland. And then when he wakes up, he asks where Timberland is. And then it turns out that Elliot went with him, so he says, take a good look, Elliot. What is missing? Timberland is missing, and you ruined everything for me. So Boog actually sticks him into the ground, and he can't pull himself out. And while he's trying, Elliot is just walking around in circles, climbing up trees, and getting hit by squirrels and their acorns because he keeps crawling up the squirrel's trees without permission. And they are laughing because Mr. Dinkelman is like a backpack on Boog's back. Scratch. So while that is going on, Elliot says, "You have no idea where you're going. I know where Timberland is." And he only said that to get himself out. But to get himself out of the ground because Boog put him in the ground because he was mad. Because he thinks that Elliot messed everything up. So Boog says, "Okay, take me to Timberland then." And then they make a deal when they get to the city that Elliot is going with him. And then Boog says, "Going with me? But what about your herd? Won't they miss you?" And then he says, "No, my herd won't miss me. They'll be fine." And then Elliot says partners, and then Boog says partners. So off they go to Timberland, but then they bump into Giselle, who Elliot has a crush on, and then Elliot and Giselle start talking, and then Elliot gets in trouble by Lane, Giselle's boyfriend, and we actually learned that he actually got kicked out of the herd because he tells Elliot that he got kicked out of the herd, and he just said they don't fit in anywhere. And then Boog says, "It's okay, Elliot, I don't fit in anywhere neither. I can't even go fishing. I can't use the bathroom in the woods. I may look like a bear, but I don't act like one." And then they share a fishy cracker together. Well, Boog eats his, and Elliot spits his out. And then Elliot sings Boog to sleep with the teddy bear song, but he actually made one up himself, and it's just so cute. And he is also sleeping with Mr. Dinkelman. And so the next day, when they're trying to get back to Timberland, guess who shows up? Shaw shows up and tries to get Boog and Elliot at the same time. But it turns out that they fall down a waterfall with Shaw, but they don't get them. But Shaw doesn't get them. But the animals that bothered them in the first half of the movie, yeah, it actually gets worse for them because Shaw the hunter actually finds them again. And actually, this is bad because they break the beaver's home, and then since they break the beaver's home, it's broken so much that the place is flooding, and then all the animals get in trouble because Boog and Elliot tried to swim away from Shaw the hunter. But since Elliot and Boog are combined together. I guess they're too heavy, and they they make a cannonball, throwing everyone on the safe side of the island to the hunter side of the island. So now all the hunters can hunt the animals because they're out of the woods now. But it was an accident, and then everybody started blaming Boog, and then Elliot tried to take up for Boog and say, "Hey, it's not his fault. Don't yell at him." And then Boog says, "Yeah, he's right. Don't yell at me. It's his fault. Because if you wouldn't have messed with me in the first place in town, I wouldn't have left home. This is all your fault, and we are no longer partners, and we're not friends, and you cannot come with me and live with me in my garage like I promised." So he walks away, and he actually finds Saul's house, and he stays in it, and he uses the bathroom, and he eats his candy. And then when Shaw comes back, he realizes that his candy is gone, and somebody used the bathroom, and they didn't flush. So he realizes that somebody is in his house. And he realizes that it is Boog, so he starts singing the song. But my only question is, how does he know the song? And I mean, I know the teddy bear has a wind up battery, but if the song doesn't have any words, how did he know the song by heart? So with with all the animals being on the hunter side of the island while hiding in Saul's house, Boog actually sees one of Elliot's antlers, and he and then he says, "Oh, I have to go back and help Elliot. I don't care what we've been through together. I don't care how mad he makes me. We're still friends. And I am still gonna protect my partner from being hunted." So he goes back, and him and all the animals team up. And Lane actually teamed up with Elliot. Lane is Giselle's boyfriend. So they actually team up, come up with a plan to protect the forest, and they actually run Shaw out of town after Shaw tries to hurt poor Elliot, and they run all the hunters off. So they scare all the hunters away. But Elliot is hurt. Oh, and are you guys worrying about Beth? Well, anyway, Beth gets a call from all the hunters and saying all the animals in the forest are going mad. Beth, you gotta get down here. And then Gordy says, "It's for you." And then she sees Boog, and then she says, "Gordy, I'm going down there to get Boog and bring him home." And I forgot to tell you, there are two explorers that are looking for Bigfoot, and they have a dog called Mr. Weenie. And they actually ran into Shaw, who said that he is looking for a bear and a deer. But but they don't say but they don't say anything about seeing a bear or a deer because they are looking for Bigfoot. And I do like their storyline. It's just so cute. Like they travel in their little RV traveling for Bigfoot. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. They actually come at the beginning of the movie when Mr. Weenie is using the bathroom outside. And after that, him and his owners go for a walk, getting coffee, and then she throws the coffee away, and then Elliot drinks it from in the trash can. And actually, Mr. Winnie actually joins in the fight. He actually goes into the woods and helps the animals fight off all the hunters that are trying to hunt them. And so, Boog actually ties up Shaw after he gets Elliot. Then the helicopter comes with Beth inside, and then she tells Boog, "Come on, Boog, I'm taking you home." Then she looks at Boog while Boog is giving her the teddy bear back and telling her in his own words that he is already home with his new friends. So Beth says, "Oh, you're already home? I'm gonna miss you, big guy, and I love you." And then they hug, and then she kisses him on the nose, and then she goes back home, and then Elliot sees this, thinking that he is going to go back home with Beth, and then he says, "Nope, there is not going to be any pickup time for us, Elliot." Because when he sees this, he's kind of thinking, "Oh, he's going to go back home with Beth." But then on the other hand, he is thinking, "Oh, he's going to go back home with Beth and he's going to let me stay with him." So when Beth leaves, this is when Elliot asks, "What time is our pickup, Elliot?" And then "So, what time is our pickup time, Boog?" And then Boog says, "Well, there is not going to be any pickup time for us, Elliot, because this is our home. You guys are my home, and this is where we belong." So, at the end of the movie, they all have a rabbit fight where they just take some rabbits and then they throw them at each other. And then that is the end of the movie. Oh, there is a post-credit scene where this where Shaw, the hunter, actually comes out of the woods after Boog and Elliot has defeated him, and he is dressed in mud and leaves, and the explorers that have Mr. Weenie as a pet thinks that they found Bigfoot. So now they have tied the hunter to the back of the car. And I think Mr. Weenie goes out into the wild, and he doesn't go back home. He stays with Elliot and Boog. And that is the end of the season. And that is the end of open season. And they worry about where, and the explorers, they worry about what happened to Mr. Weenie, but they but 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 his owner says, "I am so sad about our dog Mr. Weenie disappearing into the woods, but at least we captured Bigfoot." And you can see the hunter with his mouth tied up, covered in mud and leaves. being driven back home as Bigfoot. And that is the end of open season. Bye, and see you guys in my next